Hi, Jason, and welcome to the Digging Trail podcast.
Good morning. Thank you very much.
Um, Before we start, let's say, deep diving into your, what I think is very interesting and unique journey in the airline world of marketing, operations, everything. Maybe if you can just tell a little bit about Azul Airlines to our audience that maybe are from other parts of the world, don't know it so well, because I think it's very important to the things that we'll talk later about the brand and how it connects with the community.
Yeah, absolutely. Based in Sao Paulo, Brazil, a Brazilian airline, Azul, we have over 15,000 crew members with 900 daily departures. We fly to 135 cities in Brazil, as well as international cities in Florida and in Portugal and Spain and in Paris. We service the Brazilian market, Brazilian carrier. We've been flying for 17 years, nearly 17 years now, founded by David Neilman and a handful of people that came down from the U.S. to start the airline, and a couple of us have been there for quite some time now as we've gained traction, and we fly everything from a Cessna to an ATR to Embraer to the Airbus narrow and wide bodies.
And you, if I'm not mistaken, you serve a lot of the domestic market that is otherwise unserved, right?
Yes, we've those 135 cities that we serve. Because of the aircraft that we fly, we're able to attend many of the cities that have never had service before, or sometimes will take hours, even days, to travel to and from those cities, whether it be by bus or by boat. As we connect those cities, not only with passenger service, but also with our cargo service and necessary goods and services that we provide the Brazilian people.
You mentioned at the beginning, you started the JetBlue, right, in customer service, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, my journey started long before even JetBlue. I started in the early 90s with David Neilman at Morris Air in Salt Lake City, Utah, where actually I'm born and raised in Salt Lake City, Utah, and was a call center agent, answering the phone calls from travel agents, booking those travels on the west coast of the United States. And then David sold his airline to Southwest, and I was fortunate enough to stay on at Southwest Airlines and continued working in the reservations department. And then I did an internship in the marketing department and found that I really loved marketing, loved the people side of it, loved sales and working with the people and the external customers as well. And so I gave up my accounting degree that I had earned at the University of Utah and decided to make a career in sales and marketing, customer service, and in the airline business. Little did I know, 34 years later, I would still be in that business. So.
Yeah, but in between, if not mistaken, we'll get to the marketing part.
Yes.
But you worked in operations, if I'm not mistaken,
yes.
And then HR people.
Yes.
So
from my Southwest days, I was in sales and marketing and moved to Dallas Love Field. Got involved in some of the government fairs and government travel. And we started Swabiz, which was an online travel for corporations that Southwest wasn't a part of the ARC. So we sold directly to companies. And then I left the airline business for a short time, did some consulting work in Dallas. And then David invited me back to airlines at JetBlue. So I worked JetBlue in the customer commitment, customer service. We started the NPS back in early 2000s as the airline was getting started. And then we decided, hey, we're trying to, rescue the customer and do the customer commitment. And so he invited me to head out to the front lines. And I thought, wow, West Coast, what could I do? And he said, no, how about JFK? And so I went out to JFK and worked with the team on the customer service side at the old Terminal 6 before Terminal 5 was created there. So I had 2 years experience. It was actually probably some of the best years of my life. I loved working in the customer service, the airport operations, and really fell in love with that piece of the business and the people side of it, and seeing how all the different departments came together. And that's really where my love for human resources came about, and putting that together with the internal customers was just as important as the external customers, and how do we all work together, to make this thing happen and make it special for everybody involved. And then was invited to go to Brazil to start the airline in 2008, And so I went to Brazil and was in charge of the entire customer journey from reservations to the airport operations to flight attendants to the people department, customer experience. And I left Azul in 2014. I had a personal issue with some family that we needed to go back to the U.S. to take care of. But I was only there a year working in logistics, and I was called to come here in Portugal. And so I worked 2 years at TAP Portugal in operations and with Portuguese people here, and had a great experience here. And things didn't work out exactly as we had planned to with the privatization and that. But my current boss and good friend of mine, John Rogerson, was promoted to president CEO and invited me to come back to Brazil. And I packed my bags and headed out that same week back to Brazil. And now I've been responsible for marketing as well.
How come this combination of people and marketing?
Yeah,
this to me is very unique and
yeah,
interesting.
it kind of happened in the sense that Azul Star was very edgy. Our first marketing directors were fantastic. Panda, I don't know if you're familiar with Panda. He's very notorious in the airline business. But he was our first director of marketing and did an amazing job of creating the brand and creating the buzz and the ambition and edginess and bringing stuff to Brazil. Maybe the Brazilians know a little bit more about that Azul, we created a great brand. And, just over the last few years, as we've focused a lot on, the scheduling and the business side of it and the revenue side of it and getting all involved, those expertise were focused there, and I personally just felt that we had maybe kind of lost a step with our brand and with that focus and attention to detail. And so I talked with my colleagues and just said, hey, how about if the marketing team comes with me with the customer experience side, and let's see if we can't make sure that we don't lose what we started and we built so hard to create. And so, that's where I think, product and the service comes together with the people. And that's what truly makes the experience for our customers, both internal and external.
I understand, listening to you about your background, airline background, that I understand now much better to what from an outsider would say, okay, how does this make sense? But
yeah.
I think your emphasis on the frontline, let's say, employees, crew, customer service people being brand ambassadors and being this first touch point. Because this is a podcast that we a lot of time talk about digital touch points, digital experience, but not that we forget, but most of the real experience is still physical. And I think this emphasis on having the frontline crew being brand ambassadors and embed this in marketing, I wouldn't say it's unique, but the emphasis is something that to me it's in a way unique.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I loved what I can't remember the gentleman's name who said it yesterday from Aer Lingus, but he said I want self-service or automation when I want it, but human touch when I need it. And I think because I firmly believe that technology will only help us to deliver a better experience. I think exactly what that phrase, what I heard him say is that, people want technology. They want it, but then at the same time they need to know that, someone's behind all this if I need it as well. And so how can we deliver a seamless, smooth operation experience for the customer using technology, putting what they want? But the great thing that has changed so much over the my years in the airline business is that everybody now has a kiosk or now has that technology right here in their hand, and it's with them 24/7. And so how do we take advantage of that and utilize that to give them what they want? But also, how do we give our internal customers, our crew members, the tools and resources that they need so that they can better attend the customer? And that transparency and knowing that the information that our crew members have, you have as well. And, everybody has this access to information, and that's the beauty of technology, is that it's keeping all of us better informed and what's happening and organized. And so,
and one thing that I also saw when I was doing some background check for this interview is because I really like the word connected to the marketing, but it stems from the customer service basically is empathy and unique care, right? So you said that I think in a lot of things that you talked about the past was the emphasis on customer care and empathy.
Yeah.
How do you see this play out from this unique human touch then to extend it to the brands, to the marketing efforts?
Yeah. Well, I think, I'm very big on customer loyalty. I think, if you think about the greatest brands that are out there that you're passionate about, or your listeners are passionate about, if you think about those brands, have they always been perfect in everything that they've done? Have you always, whether it's a shoe or restaurant, a hotel, or, makeup or whatever it is, have you always just been passionate about it? They've never made mistakes? Or have you said, you know what, there's been times when I wasn't so thrilled with that brand, but what was it that happened that they won me back, or that they proved that truly I'm loyal? It's like a relationship. I've been married 34 years. And I'm sure I've said and done things that my wife probably didn't really, wasn't too satisfied at the moment. But whenever we have challenges or, fights, whatever it is we're fighting to stay together. And I think that the brand of particularly in an airline, mistakes are going to happen. Flights are going to be delayed. Flights are going to be canceled. You will be reaccommodated. You will miss an important meeting, perhaps, with your airline. But what is it that keeps you coming back? Is that how do we treat you in those moments of contingency, to where you needed help, you needed something? And I think it's okay for us to say, I don't know. Just showing that empathy. I think that's truly what people want, and they love all the positive things about your brand and your product, and they want to go out there and they want to promote it. But I think what truly is what we're after is that loyalty, and that's why the loyalty programs are so incredible. Is that how does that stickiness? How do we keep you within our ecosystem so that you're not running off to the next best thing or all that? And so, how do we keep our people with our tools and resources available, and be as open and honest as we always should be with the information that we have as well.
You have a program, if I'm not mistaken, for employee excellence, right?
Yeah, PEX, our program of excellence. Yeah.
And a model, I don't know how it's in Brazilian, but in English is OPA. It's like observe.
Yeah. So, Panda and I, when we first started, he kind of coined the phrase OPA. In Brazil, OPA, can mean a few different things, but OPA. But the training that we did, it stems back from my days at Southwest, and then the consulting I was doing was, was talking about, kind of really treating people the way they want to be treated. Because if you think about the golden rule, if I treat you the way I want to be treated, customer service, that could be a disaster, right? So I need to treat you the way you want to be treated. But how do I know how to treat you then? I don't know you. We just met. So I use, that phrase OPA came from observe and perceive and then attend. In Portuguese, observar, perceber, atender. So it's, just observe what's happening. What's the situation? I speak a foreign language. I speak English, but I've learned Portuguese, and a lot of speaking a foreign language is about observing. Like, what is the conversation? Who's talking? What is he looking at? What are surroundings? So just observe what's happening, and then start to perceive, like, what are the possible solutions that could happen, or what happens if, maybe this, maybe that, and then attend. Then attend to your customer. And so, we tell the flight attendants as customers are boarding, if they're spinning and looking up, they're obviously looking for a place to put their baggage. And so offer a suggestion. Can I help you with this? Or are you looking for a bag? Or where are the bags, that are happening? And so, that training came from, how do we truly treat the customer the way they want to be treated? And it may be different. Today, this lady's traveling and she's got a briefcase and she's walking very briskly towards the counter. We know that she's probably on a business trip, traveling by herself, and probably is mostly business today, but she could come back next month with family on a Friday night or Saturday with, kids and a baby and a stroller, and she's got all the time in the world, but she needs to be attended a little differently than she was, last month when she was traveling by herself. And so, each of us as human beings, we have different needs and wants depending on the situation that we're around. So,
no, I think it's a great model, and what I'm wondering is, because in the digital world, let's say, the observe part, the data, we can even create context from data. We can a lot of things to observe, but I think where we are as an industry in the attend part, we are not as great. So I don't know your thoughts. How could that model be, if at all, can be extended to the digital customer experience? Now there's all the talk about AI agent, chatbots. How do you embed that, let's say, that great model from the personal, physical customer experience to the digital world?
Yeah, I was listening to podcasts. I love listening to podcasts. But, someone once said, AI will not replace us. But AI will replace those of us that don't learn how to use AI. Yeah. And so, the beauty of kind of what's happening, we were on a panel yesterday, and a colleague from AWS was just saying, hey, there's new stuff happening all the time. I mean, listen to GPT, Chat GPT or VR, AR, there's all these different things. There's always going to be new technology. But what we need to do is we need to really understand how do we, whether it's your CRM tools or know your customer, how do we utilize the technology to scan all the historical data? How does it to do the predictive modeling? What is it that we're doing to help us to better serve and, give the customer the tools and the resources that they need and want, so that, the experience with us is not something about repair. There should be no excuses for us to ask you to, go into a doctor's office, and you fill out the same form, and then you fill out the same form a million different times. That should really just be done with the past. And our CRM tool should be such that we, know our customers so well that we don't need to be asking them questions or inconveniencing them. And, there should be a point in time. I said yesterday that, I see in the future, some airline, I don't know, hopefully it's Azul, but maybe it's somebody else, will create kind of just a silent boarding process to where we know exactly what your preferences are. We know who you are. We know where you're sitting. We know how to communicate with you directly, so that, you get a push notification on the app, the airline app, that tells you, your boarding time will be within the next 2 to 3 minutes, and to please, bring your bags or whatever it is and come up and board. And we don't need to be making announcements and screaming, but, the technology with baggage, how do we utilize, the technology to make sure that, missing baggage is something of the past, to where customers and their bags always travel together, and there's never an issue with it. But the technology piece is just to help us to better, serve. Some things with aviation will never change. You still need to go to an airport. You still need to have something to board that plane, something to identify yourself. But that could all be with the, facial scans. And, do we, go through customs immigration without any stopping, or just people, the governments know who we are? And
I think the flow that you mentioned, I think, is where we can use technology to remove friction points. If you think about Uber, for example, how they removed friction point from a taxi, how much it will cost, when it will arrive, when I will arrive, everything is there. And it's like after you click, I think I see that vision. If I do that when I book my ticket, and then I just see future, let's say in a seamless way, my steps without trying to do a lot of these things, I think that would go a long way.
Yeah, and they've added stuff to where, share my ride, notify my, my partner what's going on, split the fare. I'm splitting with somebody else, kind of a easier version for maybe older adults, teens. I have sons and a daughter that utilize Uber much more now, and so how do we, So I think always thinking ahead, the safety, the security, safety and security of it all, and making sure you know who your driver is and they know who you are, and so that's the advancement of technology, and just that constant desire to be better and better, and bring it more and more convenience to the journey, the customer journey, which is no longer linear, right? It's just a constant journey process, and within the ecosystem of an airline or a company, but also who are those partners? You mentioned Uber. We work with API for hotel accommodations for our crew members, and I was at their conference last week, and they're bringing those business partners in to help with that. They understand that their clients are the airlines, but their customer is a crew member. And so Uber for Business was there, and talking about, okay, how do we get your crews from the airport to the hotels, and how do we make that experience for your crew members better? And so how do companies collaborate with a similar customer, whether it's airport with the airlines, and the lounges that are at the airport and the security at the airport. How do we all work together within that ecosystem of the airport as well to make the customer journey better?
One thing, because you mentioned word collaboration, and if I go back to my first question about Azul, about the brands and what markets you serve, one thing that I found interesting was that you see, let's say, destinations that you fly in more like a collaboration in developing them together with Azul. Maybe if you tell me a little bit about that, because again, I think it's a little bit unique, and it goes back to the customer, people care, empathy.
Yeah, and I think one of the unique things that we've been able to do in Brazil with Azul and some of these destinations is, during the pandemic, a lot of focus was really, on sustainability and ESG, and a lot of people outside of Brazil were saying, we've got to save the Amazon. And in a conversation with John, our CEO, it was like, we got to connect the Amazon. How can you save the Amazon if the Amazon's not connected? Or how do we, how can we bring, all these wonderful people, and they're doing a lot of great things in the Amazon, but how do we help them to sell their products and to connect them and make something more easily, scalable for them as well? And so, we really started looking at how do we promote, the Brazilian communities all throughout the North and Northeast, and develop in some of these cities when we fly into with our business units, whether it's with the Azul Cargo that we connect them with the shipping and that, but we also have like the business development business unit, whether it's our packaging with Azul Viagens, but go in there and really talk to governments, talk to the local officials, and say, how do we develop and really capacitate? I don't know if that's the right word, capacitar, but how do we help to educate them to receive tourism? And do they have instead of just helping them set the price, how do they develop their businesses and prepare themselves to receive these customers that are coming? Not just connected their people to São Paulo or to Rio, but how do we bring those people to find these hidden treasures that are in Brazil? That a lot of the Brazilians that do travel, have the money to really travel. A lot of them will travel outside of Brazil, and what we're saying is, that's great. We have flights outside, but we have those 130 destinations within Brazil that they're hidden treasures and some of the most beautiful beaches, the most beautiful paradises that exist within the country. And as we connect those, how do we work with those local establishments and businesses and governments and that to say, hey, let's make this a very positive thing for you and for your guests that are coming in here. And so, it's a win for the community, it's a win for the customer, and it's a win for Azul and our crew members as well.
Yeah, and this campaign, I will for sure I tried with my Portuguese speaking friends, I tried to learn how to say it, but the last campaign, which is in English, the sky in Brazil is azul, which is blue, if I understand. Yeah. How do you pronounce the campaign?
Well, in my Portuguese, I can say O Céu do Brasil azul.
Yeah, so is this
certo?
Much better than mine. But is this where was this the goal of this campaign, also to emphasize this connection with the, let's say, local communities?
Yeah, we work with a fabulous agency, Africa, in Brazil, and we had a campaign that was the sky is blue, O Céu azul, and one of our focuses the last year was Brasilidade, or Brazilness.
Yes.
And really focusing on that, and as we said, hey, we have our competitors are there. We're truly the Brazilian airline, and there's a saying, Tudo Azul. They can say that means everything's perfect. Everything's blue means kind of everything's perfect, everything's great. And so as you look around this great, big, beautiful country, and the sky, just everything the sky is blue. And so that was a great campaign. But as we said, Brasilidade, we really want to focus on Brazil, and we want our customers to focus on Brazil, and we want, in the world to focus on how great Brazil is. And the country's great, but the thing that's better than the country are the brasileiros. The people there are fabulous and wonderful people. And so the campaign was, the Brazilian sky is blue. And so we connected that to kind of, make sure people know that we are the Brazilian carrier, and we're connecting these communities all throughout the, all corners of the country, and helping us to make sure that our crew members also continue to have great pride at this company that we've established and what it means to bring people together, and whether it's for business or pleasure or just visiting friends.
I saw some innovating concepts with this campaign where you had like weather forecast, and then if the on destination the sky was blue or sunny, you put your QR codes to that destinations, and also offline some similar things, right?
So some of our outdoors, it would say, so if in São Paulo it could be rainy, it could be cloudy and all that, but utilizing technology, obviously not. You just know that in Salvador or in Recife the sky's blue, and so we would put up a picture of Recife and just kind of digitally say, today the blue skies of Brazil is in Recife, and scan your QR code here, and you can book with our app and get yourself a flight and head up there. Or, the outdoors in the malls and what it is, just kind of reminding people where the traditional blue skies are in the country, but helping people to decide, hey, you really want to visit some blue skies. Well, where is it? And then on the news forecast on the open TV was, something that we'd never seen done before. And Africa had told us that they'd never seen it done before. But exactly, is for them to give the weather forecast and, talk about where and this and that, but, kind of put a tagline in there that says, oh, and the blue skies of Azul, are up here in the north today, or, So it was a great campaign. And
I love the concept.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe to wrap this up, we talked about merging of physical, digital, people, customer service, marketing. With your experience now, because you are in charge, let's say, both in people and marketing, so both external and internal people, I would say. For airline marketeers, I don't know, digital, offline, any kind of marketeers, what would you say is the most important, let's say, skills in the future? Because now everybody, I think, it's a little bit stressed out. There is a lot of anxiety with the AI technology, a lot of emphasis there. But on the other hand, we talked about how these people skills are important. So
no, and I think each business is different, and I think in the airline business, we were talking about this yesterday as well here at the World Aviation Festival, is that it's so dynamic, and so you have to have a vision of the next 2-3 years, but you need to know that things are going to change 8-10 times between now and then. And so how do you adapt that? So what are the pillars that you really are going to focus on, and kind of set your hat there and say that's the direction we're going, that's our north, that's the direction we're headed, and then how do you look around you as a marketing director, or and then also I have our HR director that reports to me, and how do we look around and say, is our team prepared for this, and is our are we prepared to join this together, and we're free of silos. The company, the operation is critical to the business. If I always say, if your core business is not functioning, it doesn't matter what kind of marketing you have or customer service you have. If your core business is not right, is our operation on time. We have a fabulous Daniel Chikax and Andre Cruz, 2 VPs that do an amazing job with our operation, both on the airport side and maintenance and engineering. But if that operation is running great, you're already way ahead of your competitors then, and making sure. And then how do you make sure that messaging resonates with your internal customer as well as with your external customer, and that you are not creating any type of a friction or putting your crew members, I say crew members, employees, into situations where they have to be the bearer of bad news, or they have to help. And so as marketing that product, it's really everything that you see, it's everything that you hear, it's everything that you smell, it's everything that you sense. And so looking around that, saying, do I have the right people in the right positions to help us to truly understand what it is. Am I listening? Am I using the technology? It used to be I can never read all those comments that customers tell. Well, now you can.
Yeah.
Just plug it all into, basic, AI tool, and it'll come back and say, here's your top 3 things that these, 5,000 customers said about you last week. And so are you using that data, and is it something that you're, we have a lot of Power BIs, and this is what drives us crazy executives. You're just like, there's a lot of data out there, but there's very little information. And so, we focus on what are those points that you're using? What are your key indicators that you're going after? And do you truly understand what those mean? And does your team know what that means? And is it relevant to them? And is it relevant to the executives? And are you truly listening to your customer? And are they truly, understanding what it is that you're trying to communicate? And is it a true partnership in what you're doing? So,
Yeah, I agree. What I do in my, let's say, consulting role is often start with optimizing booking flows,
Yeah.
And it starts with the same process, listening, okay, measuring where are the gaps, because data can give you something, but it doesn't give you context. Then you start listening, asking people, and okay, you figure out a little bit UX, technical problems, but the deeper you dig, the closer to the product you get. And you start hearing the most complaints are not about the booking flow, but are baggage policy, schedule, things like that. And this is, I think, where a lot of times digital people then struggle because they don't understand the whole product. And what I'm hearing from you is you have to be this holistic person to understand the airline business and product, which is complex. And then once you do, you can be a good marketer.
Yeah. And I started out as a call center agent, and I still remember 34 years later, the training that I received was, you dominate a conversation by talking, but you control a conversation by asking. And so I think, asking questions. How do I treat you the way you want to be treated? I can use OPA and observe and perceive and attend, or I can ask you questions, and I think that's something that we always, a customer, it's just like he or she will tell you if you ask them as well. So,
our prior guest in the podcast says, because I asked a similar question more from the digital side, she said curiosity. And I think curiosity and willingness to learn and be curious, but then being able to all connect this together, I think it's the right approach.
And the biggest obstacle to new learning is old learning. So as we're getting older, kind of saying, okay, what I did in the past was great, but maybe that's not what's going to get us to the next level. And so am I willing to learn and allow other people, right? Allow other people to shine and step into these roles and let them step out on stage and take the lead on different projects or different departments and all that as well.
Thank you, Jason. I hope our interview, your insights and experience, because it's really amazing.
Thank you.
Will be a small, let's say, stepping stone in somebody's learning process.
Well, hopefully so. It's been great for me to learn and grow with others along the way. So, we're all in this together.
Thank you.
Thank you.